Welcome to the channel. I'm James Salvatore, and today I have something you've all been requesting for a little while now. This is the all-new 2020 Porsche Cayenne Coupe. But this isn't any normal Cayenne Coupe. This is the turbo model, one of the highest performance variants they make of the Cayenne Coupe. And in today's video, I'm going to be reviewing it for you, telling you some things you need to know about the vehicle, and then I'm going to go take it for a drive and share my thoughts on it with you. But before we get into the video, be sure to smash the like button for the YouTube algorithm, and be sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notification to be alerted when I post my future videos. On the channel, I do everything from new car reviews, new car comparisons, classics, exotics. So if that's your thing, be sure to stick around. And with that said, cue the cinematics. Yeah, this thing is properly quick. All right, let's get right into things. Starting off with the design, just take a look at this thing. It's beautiful. I think Porsche has knocked it out of the park when it comes to the proportions on this truck. I mean, there are so many other SUV coupes on the market now that just look like the coupe versions were an afterthought. Like they just decided to chop the top and they thought that looked cool, but no, they just look awkward. They certainly don't pull it off like this does. I mean, just take a look at the lines on this thing, how everything comes to a nice, elegant, sculpted rear end. With these quad blacked out exhaust pipes, this is just a really beautiful car. But you might be thinking to yourself right now, do these coupe-like lines come at the expense of practicality? And my answer to that is not really, because when it comes to rear cargo storage, with the seats up, you still have 22 cubic feet of cargo storage. And with the normal Cayenne, you have 27. So that's not really that much of a loss there. And with the seats down, in the normal Cayenne, you have 60 cubic feet. And in this, you have 56. You know, so that's not really that big of a difference if you ask me. But you might be thinking to yourself next, well, is rear headroom compromised because of the coupe lines? Let's go test it out. All right, getting into the back of this car, you know, I have plenty of leg room here, and I've set this seat up for my driving position. I'm 6'1", so keep that in mind. And when it comes to headroom, I am not sacrificing at all. I have, I would say, an extra 1.5 inches of clearance above me, so I would say passengers 6'2", 6'3" would be comfortable back here, absolutely no problem at all. And I also really like the panorama roof here that extends the entire roof line of the car. It makes for a nice open air feel back here, and I also like how nicely bolstered the seats are back here, because seeing that this is a high performance model, if the driver is driving spiritedly, you're not going to really get thrown about the cabin. So overall, I don't really see fitting rear passengers back here as being a problem whatsoever. Porsche has made sure to have you covered on that. When it comes to tech, this car is loaded. Let's take a look. When it comes to the infotainment system, you can see that this is Porsche's latest version of Connect. It's a 12-inch multi-touch display featuring Google Maps as the navigation software. And I mean, for the most part, it doesn't get any more cutting edge than this. You also have Apple CarPlay integration, which is convenient for most. And there are a number of apps to choose from that do various functions, such as checking weather, gas prices, etc. You can also control many of the car's features directly from the infotainment system, which is nice. Now you'll also see it has an off-roading tab, which is pretty neat. It's similar to a Range Rover where you could select different terrains that you're going over, and the car will adapt accordingly for those terrains. And with this air suspension, you also have a selectable ride control where you can have the vehicle in different positions, which helps out with ground clearance. I like that Porsche's tidied up the center console too. You'll notice that you have touch capacitive buttons here, but they're done in a very tasteful way and they're responsive and you get haptic feedback. And for the things that you would otherwise press multiple times in a row, they've left rocker switches, which is nice, like say for your temperature and your fan speed. And for the volume, you have a nice slider switch done in aluminum. Nice touch if you ask me. When it comes to the driver's information center, you'll see that Porsche has kept true to their tradition of having the analog tack front and center, which I like. Keeps everything really easy and clear to read, but they've also done a nice job of modernizing things by adding these dual LCD displays on the sides where you could display various functions of the vehicle and have your maps front and center, which I like. I like that they also made it so you could display the Google Maps satellite maps as well, because it adds a really nice modern feel to the vehicle, and the left side is just as customizable. And then what's pretty neat is you have the drive mode selector conveniently located right on the steering wheel. You have normal mode, sport plus mode, and individual. But the interesting thing here is if you hit this button in the center, you'll see what's displayed is sport response mode, which puts the turbos into overboost mode for about 15 seconds to give you an optimal launch. But where the turbo model really stands out is performance. Under the hood, you'll find a 4-liter twin turbocharged V8 producing 541 horsepower and 567 foot-pounds of torque mated to an 8-speed Tiptronic transmission. And seeing that this car has all-wheel drive, you can expect to see 0 to 60 in just 3.7 seconds with a top speed of 177 miles an hour, which is crazy for an SUV. But it doesn't stop there, because you can get this car with optional carbon ceramic brakes and Porsche's adaptive suspension. And this car is also optioned with Porsche's adaptive exhaust system. Let's get a cold start real quick. As you can see, this thing sounds the business, but you know, enough talking. Let's go out on the road and go for a drive. Getting into the Cayenne Turbo, the first thing that hits you is the sound of this V8. I mean, hang on, let's take a listen to it. Woo! Yeah, this thing is properly quick. It definitely earns the turbo badge. And the power delivery in this car is very smooth. You know, you may hear the performance numbers of this thing and think to yourself, this thing is more, you know, racy, it's gonna, you know, not really be comfortable, but that's not the case. If you're looking for something that's comfortable, but that really gets up and goes and that can actually handle, this thing really accomplishes that well. Let's see how responsive the transmission is though, because this is their Tiptronic 8-speed. This isn't a PDK, so I'm gonna downshift 2 gears. I mean, it's not as responsive as a PDK transmission, but for a torque converter transmission, it's up there. I mean, it's a really good transmission. I would definitely put this on the same level as maybe like the ZF transmissions you'll find in BMWs. And the brakes in this car are spot on. Now, this car doesn't have the carbon ceramic optional brakes, but in my opinion, I don't really think you need them. You have plenty of stopping power in this car. I mean, if you plan on trying to track this car, which I don't think many of you will be, but say if you did, because this car is the higher performance variant, I would definitely recommend going with the carbon ceramics, but just for around town, I don't think the money is justified on that one. I think that this is just fine. Now, the trick with this exhaust is, it's very good at being quiet when you're not on it. But the moment you lay into the throttle a little bit, just take a listen. It opens right up. And it lets you know what you have laying under that hood. But when you want this car to be comfortable and quiet around town, it is. The suspension softens right up, and the transmission is buttery smooth. First and foremost, the Cayenne is a luxury experience first. For a half mile. And it shows in every way. The build quality in this car is excellent. There is not one creak, rattle, or groan throughout this interior. I mean, you can pull on things, you know, try to move panels. You're not going to get anything. Whereas in other new cars, you'll actually find that's quite common. And every surface in this car is either colored in leather, Alcantara, or stainless steel. You know, it feels high quality, everything about it. You know, the paddle shifters are actually metal, you know, they're not plastic, they're not fake.
In 1,000 feet,
they didn't cheap out on the door cards. Even the lower thirds of these door cards are covered in leather. And it makes for just the ultimate luxury experience. Matched with, you know, the driving position in this car is great. You know, the Cayenne in general, Porsche and all their cars always takes into account driver visibility. You could truly see everything out of this car. You don't need any of the electronic assistance features. You have them if you want them, but you don't need them. And that's refreshing, especially in an SUV like this. I found myself not even relying on the backup camera whatsoever. It's just very easy to see out of this car. But put this car into turns and it feels connected with you. For an SUV, few SUVs, especially of this size, still give you an idea of what's going on with the road. I mean, you know, you don't really feel what's going on through the pavement, but it's very easy to place this vehicle and it handles very flat on the road. Another thing that I like is how easy it is to read the gauges in this car. A lot of cars, you know, they overcomplicate the digital dashes. You know, they have so much information in your face, it's hard to just read your speed and your tachometer in most cases. I mean, this car does a great job with that traditional tach of giving you everything you need right in front of your face, and then you have the option to customize what you like. But it never forgets to remind you what it is. When you hit the gas, whoo, just listen to that. Just listen to that. And just take a look at this view. Wow, that is beautiful. But this thing really gives you confidence to take turns at speed. I mean, most SUVs have body roll. This thing just doesn't. It just doesn't. Around turns, this thing is perfectly planted and flat. Now, I wouldn't see this as being something I would take on the track, but, you know, for fun-spirited driving on back roads, it is perfect. Approaching a turn. Whew. Brake feel in this car is great. They're right there. Now, one nice thing I like is you have your performance modes right on the steering wheel, and when you put the car in Sport Plus, you can instantly tell it's ready to go. It raises the RPM, so it spools the turbos a little bit. I mean, let's just get a little sound. Wow. This thing is fast for an SUV, guys. Very fast. I mean, like, I can't wipe the smile off my face. This thing is fun. That's the most important thing. When you spend this much money, especially on an SUV instead of a 911 or something, you want it to still be fun. And I can promise you, it accomplishes that. Just in a different way. I mean, it's not like you don't feel that this is an SUV. It still definitely feels big. You definitely still feel the weight, but it feels confident and it just hauls. It just hauls when you hit the gas. Woo! Just listen to that. Let's pitch it into a turn. Wow. This thing just stays glued to the road. I mean, like, you know, mid-turn, you give it a little bit of throttle and you expect it to kind of push into the turn, but you definitely feel that active torque vectoring going on in the rear. It just really brings this car around the corner and manages the power in just such an efficient way. I'm really impressed with this thing. I mean, if you're looking for an SUV that could do it all, you know, you need something that you could take your family in, but you want to have fun and you want to be comfortable on long commutes and whatnot, this car is perfect. Overall, I recommend the Cayenne Coupe for somebody who's looking for a fun daily driver that's distinctive and interesting. It's not a replacement for a sports car, but it doesn't feel like it's trying to be. This car definitely feels like more of a luxury car than a performance car, but that's not a bad thing, because if you're buying something like this, you want it to be comfortable. But when you want this thing to get up and go, and you want to go around turns and you want to have fun, it can do it. I mean, it does it way better than you think, and it's very confidence inspiring, despite its size and weight. I have full confidence in throwing this thing into a corner because it stays perfectly flat and composed, which you wouldn't expect from something this size. I highly recommend one, and I think you should try it out, because honestly, there really isn't that many negatives to this other than the loss of some cargo storage, but it's really not that bad. Well, that's all for today's video. I hope you enjoyed it as much as I enjoyed making it for you. If you have any other particular models you'd like me to review, be sure to drop them in the comment section below. And if you haven't done so yet, be sure to help me out by smashing that like button and being sure to subscribe and turn on the bell notifications so you don't miss out on my future content. Before we go though, I'd like to say a special thanks to my friends down at Porsche of Fairfield, Connecticut for making this review possible. They're a super awesome, super helpful group of people, and they have a lot of rare models in their inventory. So if you're looking for a new Porsche, definitely check them out. I'm going to include their contact information in the description below so you could do so. And with that said, thank you for watching, and I'll see you next video.